Hello, and welcome to Symbiosis Perspectives on the Future of Private Practice webinar. This webinar is for healthcare professionals and students who are starting or thinking about starting their own private practices. We talk with successful private practice owner-operators who share their hard-won experiences. Our goal is to empower you with valuable tips and knowledge on how to open, operate, and grow your own private practice. I'm your host, Seung-Ho Jung. Today, we have Melodie Ethel-King, the Rehab Director of New Horizons Wellness Services, who will be joining us to share her journey opening New Horizons Wellness Services. New Horizons Wellness Services is a multi-specialty coordinated care clinic specializing in providing evidence-based occupational and language therapy, social skills groups, and psychological services. New Horizons Wellness Services is certified as a minority-owned small business and was created to promote purpose, diversity, innovation, and acceptance as its core values. The clinic works with children, adolescents, and adults following a family practice model. Multidisciplinary team specializes in providing services to clients during periods of transition, social pressure, or increased academic or work demands. Melodie is a licensed and certified occupational therapist with 20 years of experience providing occupational therapy to individuals across their lifespan. She is a member of the Occupational Therapy Association of Oregon. Melodie has specialized in training in the areas of autism spectrum disorders, sensory processing and regulation, and social thinking. And without further ado, welcome, Melodie. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Glad that you could join us too. First of all, let's get started. What inspired you to create New Horizons Wellness Services? Please tell us the journey that you took from conceiving the idea of NHWS to opening doors.
Well, yes, that's a great story because, every practice comes into being a little bit differently. So for our clinic story, New Horizons Wellness Services had existed for over 20 years as a private psychology practice. So my husband, who is also the clinic director, is a neuropsychologist. And so he already had a private practice that was successful and operating. And for some time, he had been noticing when he was making referrals for other services such as occupational therapy or speech therapy or social skills groups, that his clients were having a hard time finding and accessing those services. So we were aware of a need in our community. And so after that, then I gradually started to participate in the business in doing the social skills group. So basically, I added in occupational therapy to an existing service of the clinic, kind of putting my toe in the water. And then from that time, we, again, in recognizing the need in our community, decided to add in individual occupational therapy and speech therapy services. So it was a bit of a slow evolution rather than like, oh, we're going to go and, open up doors and have it be a clinic from the ground up.
No, but that is fascinating. And that is a lot of the model that most private practices are taking, where I'm very happy that you addressed the issue of there's a need for referrals. Mm-hmm. And most people don't know who to go to for occupational therapy, who to go to for psychology. And this organic growth is very indicative of what the models go, what is occurring in the market. And
Mhm.
I know referring to healthcare as a market is a little bit of a dirty term, but on
Well,
that, from the business perspective, yeah, it is. There is that need that needs to be addressed. Returning back to your journey, this organic journey, recognizing the need in your community and evolving to create a service and a private practice that meets that need. What were the top three key transformative challenges at the very beginning of starting New Horizons Wellness Services?
right. So I think that one thing that was important for when I was just joining on as a provider was so part of my background was that I've worked with a lot of different types of clients. So I felt comfortable at our clinic, we follow a family practice model. So we see kids, we see teens, we see adults. And so, and also as a starting out, you think like, oh, I definitely don't want to turn any potential client away, right? Like anybody that comes to me, I can see and I can meet their needs. And so I think that that was a challenge that I faced and we faced as a clinic to more clearly identify who was the type of client that we were trying to serve and what was going to be our niche or our area of specialty that we were going to go out and focus on that type of client because in therapy obviously there are lots of different areas of specialty there. Not any one provider can do it all. So already because of the model that we have of serving all ages is pretty broad. So then being able to define out for that. So for example, I don't do hand therapy or I don't have physical agent modalities. I don't have areas for working on anything more like a neuro rehab or things like that. So being able to clearly define what we do and what we don't do. So rather than feeling like, oh, there's a referral coming in and I just have to take it and try to meet their needs.
That is in business, that is one of the smartest things all successful business owners suggest. It's identify your market. And again, I am so sorry for using that, but identifying the clients, patients that you need to really address and that you can address is very important for a successful practice.
Yeah. I
How?
also, oh, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No,
Oh,
please.
I also wanted to say that for us that it's kind of tying in a challenge and how we dealt with it was for having a as we started to build in other providers, it was important along those lines to build the services that we're offering based off of what we wanted to have in our clinic rather than the specific skills of the providers. So, for example, as we were hiring on more OTs or speech providers or even mental health providers, say a person had specialized training in stuttering. Okay, well, so a speech therapist they're like, I want to develop a specialized program for stuttering. Well, that's great. But then if that provider leaves and nobody else on the team has that specialized training, then where are your clients going to go? And so one thing that we identified was, okay, well, what are the programs that we want to have? So for example, we know that we want to have, be able to offer services for feeding. So all of our providers that are going to come on are going to have some training in feeding, and knowing that. And it's great that our providers have specialty training, and certainly don't want to discourage that, but to say, okay, these are the things that we know we're always going to want to offer, and to not build a program based on a certain provider's skill set.
Oh, that's fascinating, because in business, they always think about what the organization needs, not what the individual is providing. So, I mean, this is a very interesting interplay here of meeting an organic need that's grown in the community, but also establishing boundaries and organizational needs that meet those boundaries. So it is a very fascinating input.
And again, I think it's one of those things that as a new provider, you think like, oh, I want to do it all. I want to offer every program. I want to be the one place, but that can just create a lot more challenges.
And I agree with you. I mean, this goes really well to the next sort of question which is, based upon your experience, how do you define and qualify a well-run private practice?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that there, as a starting out as a clinician, it's easy to just focus on the clinical side of things. So for me, I can always default to providing excellent clinical care, right? So if my clients are coming in, our patients are satisfied and happy with the care that they're getting, they're making progress, they feel that they're getting, that we're there for them and supporting them. Those are all the things as a clinician we value. That's why we do what we do, right? And in opening a practice, I think that there's that part of you that is seeing a need or feels like there is some area that you have a special skill to be able to bring to the community. So that's part of, I think, most providers, their motivation in starting a practice. So it's easy to focus on that part, right? I've got great clinical skills. I have this great idea for service delivery. My clients are all happy. They're getting what they need. So that's success. And I definitely, right, as a clinician, it's easy to just focus on that part. However, when you open a business, there's the business side of it. And I think that for me, in school, that was not anything that was taught in school as far as running a business, having a private practice, and even with other providers in the community, people that I knew, there just weren't a lot of people that in my circle that I could turn to that were other therapists. And so to say, okay, well, what's a successful private practice? You have to take into account the business side of it. So things like, are you making money? Are you going to be able to pay your employees and your rent and meet your financial responsibilities? Are you going to be able to pay yourself? So that's one part of it. And then if you are planning on getting to the point of having employees, there's also the whole part of human resources and managing employees. And aside from, a group of clinicians, we can all come together and work together really well. But the human resources part of it is another whole area. And then there's the whole area of like the managing IT and what computer systems you're going to use and what electronic medical record, and do you have an attorney to consult with to make sure that all your documents are meeting licensure requirements? And so all of the business side of things is when I think going in, when you think about a private practice, for me as a clinician, I'm thinking about, this is the kind of room that I want, and this is the equipment that I want, and it's going to be so great to work with clients. And all of that is true. I do love all of that. But I had to open my mind to the idea. It actually took me a long time to even say, I'm a business owner. Because in my mind, oh no, I'm not really, I'm just running this clinic. Well, no, I'm a business owner, and I have to embrace that if I am owning a business, and to, I guess, be able to think in both sides of success. You can't have one without the other, I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh no, I agree totally. Another way I look at it is self-care. You have to be able to take care of yourself. You have to be able to take care of your business. Your clinic is an extension of yourself. and
Sure.
and being able to take care of your business means taking care of yourself too. So, I mean, and I'm so happy that you brought up that topic of recognizing the identity of a business owner, because there is in a lot of schools and a lot of students that we've talked to this hesitation of, oh, no, stay away from business. No, it's a clinic.
Right. But if you own a clinic, you're a business owner.
No, exactly.
Or a private practice, right? So even if you are setting up a model where you aren't having a clinic or doing telehealth, but if you are a provider working for yourself, then you are a business owner. And so embracing that part, just like the clinical part, was something for me that was a big mind shift. And to acknowledge that I had a lot of learning to do, because I didn't have that background, academic, learning piece. So I had to go out and, seek that out to gain what I needed to.
You know what they say, learning on the job is the best sort of learning that you can get. It never leaves you because you've actually put it into practice.
Right.
So let's really, on the same question, has your definition of a well-run practice changed with your experience, or changed due to external factors such as changes in the law or the change with insurance laws? A lot to say about that, but also with COVID and even changes in the perception by the public, because over a decade ago, very few people understood the idea of what is occupational therapy. It was all labeled under sort of rehabilitation, physical rehabilitation. But now people have realizing there's this change to perception.
I think that, gosh, that's a really big question. I'm going to try to break it down into a few different parts. I'm going to talk about COVID first, because that definitely did change a lot of things for us, and it still has. So before COVID, about just over a year before COVID, we had moved into a bigger location. So we went from about a 2,500 square foot office space into over a 6,000 square foot office space, with the plan of growing. Our service delivery, we had been in a steady period of growth. We were on top of each other in our old space, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna move into this bigger space, and we're all prepared for that. We moved, we had hired on some new providers, and we're starting to get our feet underneath us after the move, and then COVID. And so prior to COVID, we were not doing any telehealth services. Just wasn't a model that we were using. So within 2 weeks, we converted our service model to primarily all telehealth, which was a huge amount of learning, operations. Very thankful to Symbiosis for the help in helping us figure out how to provide secure links and being able to integrate that with our platforms that we were already using. And telehealth is another whole, like I said, it's another whole model of service provision. So we had to find trainings for our providers and find resources. So it was very intense time. During the time of COVID, because we're an outpatient clinic, and people, our clients come to us, whether on telehealth or in person. It's different than being in a hospital where they're not going to leave, right? You're still going to be there providing services. A lot of people just said, oh, we're just going to wait it out. We're going to just cancel all of our treatment and just wait until this goes away. So initially, obviously, it was very challenging to have a reduction in our number of clients. After about 6 months, people realized that it wasn't going away, and so we started to gain back our clients. We never stopped seeing people in the clinic completely, but we had to completely change. We had set up our space to have multiple providers in a bigger treatment room, multiple providers in a area for documentation, and then having several smaller treatment rooms. So we had to totally flip-flop that and have single providers in with their clients in treatment spaces, and then also move providers out of a central area so that they could have their own individual office for doing telehealth, and being able to try to separate out our administrative staff from our clinical staff to try to limit risks of exposure. So as well as implementing in Oregon, they had well, I'm sure everywhere there's multiple changing laws, frequently changing laws about requirements, and so trying to keep up implementing those things for services in the clinic. So we have now, we're currently about 50-50 telehealth and in-clinic services. So we have not gone back to our previous model and uses of space, but we are back in that place where actually beyond where we were at the beginning of COVID with, we've added in multiple providers and are back in that position of growth because, my motto is the need never goes away. So the need didn't go away. It was just put on hold while people were dealing with, a pandemic and a lot of changes in, trying to manage their personal lives. But now that the basics, a lot of people have figured out how to live during this time, the need is still there. And so we are very busy. And I think that that motto of the need is always there is one thing that I have carried with me through many different ups and downs, going back to the other part of the question of changes in payers. We had one insurance company that we were in network with several years ago that was about 50% of our caseload had this one insurance company. And one day we got an email saying they were closing. And within a month, they were all gone. And some people were able to change in providers. Some people didn't, but to have those things where just, I guess, having gone through it multiple times with insurance payers or referral sources, having a referral source that sends us a lot of clients and then them saying, I'm moving out of state and, or COVID or whatever happens, to keep that in mind. Like, the need is still there. We just have to be able to, adjust how we're doing things, to be able to meet the need. And, I think that for us as a clinic, that is how we have defined being a successful practice, is that we're still here. We're still here. We're still growing. We're still trying to meet the need, despite all of those things.
I couldn't agree with you more. Longevity is one of the best ways to measure the success of any organization, be it a business,
Right.
a country, or a clinic. And I love that your motto, the need is always there, because there is always a need. This is health.
Exactly.
That was a very eloquent and beautiful answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, returning back to your personal experience here,
Mm-hmm.
based upon your experience, what are some common mistakes that private practice owner operators, that's a tongue twister, make when they're opening or managing their own private practices?
Well, I think that there's I kind of already touched on that fear or expectation of trying to do it all, trying to see every client, trying to think that I I'm going to do every single part of the business. And recognizing, I would say one of the biggest things is finding out what you don't know. Because there's so many different layers. When we were starting this, we'd say, okay, well, I don't really know about, let's say, human resources. I don't really know about human resources. So then I'd start to learn about that and I'd be like, okay, well, like, obviously there's people that have degrees in human resources, right? And so there's all these different layers of, oh my gosh, and I didn't know that. Oh, and I didn't know that, and I didn't know that. And so for me, I think the big part was to move beyond getting overwhelmed by that, and to recognize, okay, I don't know those things. So what am I going to do about it? Like, am I going to hire a consultant? Am I going to seek out additional training opportunities? Am I going to say, I'm not doing that piece at all and hand it over to somebody else? So I think that when you are starting, obviously, unless you have another source of income, I think that is, it's a really hard thing to think about. Okay, I'm going to hire somebody to do this, right? Because I think, oh, I should do it all. I can say for myself, I gradually built up my part of the practice. So like I said, the clinic already existed, but I kept working at another job part-time for a couple of years while I worked on building up the practice, because just for that security piece. Not that I wasn't fully committed, but I knew that I wasn't going to be able to bring in the income to be able to support myself while I was doing all of this building portion. And so having a plan for that, like financially, what you're going to do, because when you start, the financial piece of it is a big part, right? Obviously, we work to make money, but if you're making choices just based on that, like, oh, I don't have the money to invest in getting an attorney to review my paperwork or whatever it may be, then it can lead to mistakes or things being left out that are going to cost you more in the long term, so I think definitely getting some supports on board is huge.
I mean, the way you described about building your own private practice while part-timing at another practice, that is probably the wisest way to go about building your own private practice. From what we've heard in general, the most successful people have repeated this very wise adage that you say just now about making sure that you are secure.
Well, sure. I mean, and of course, people are at different phases in their life when they may be starting a private practice, and so I think looking at your own, financial situation and what your requirements are, I think it's important to recognize that for most people, I think it takes a while to get to that point of like, all right, we're financially sound and we are, it takes a lot of upfront investment, especially of time and finances, but to get things going, I can't talk about other people's experience, but for us, it was a couple years of me working quite steadily in building the clinic, and it was gradual progress. It may have gone faster if I had quit my other job and did it full time, but for me, in my situation, I that didn't work for me. So yeah.
And it's, again, what works for you. Returning back to your answer about support, how often should first-time private practice owner operators, so first-time owners, engage with free input from other people? Because there is these two mixed notions of, oh, take all the free advice, and the other side is, don't take all the free advice. Take the ones that you know are the experts, or they have their own classifications. On which side of that scale would you be on?
Well, I would say take free advice from people with credibility. And I will say what I did. So I was actually joined our local chamber of commerce, which wasn't free, but it wasn't expensive. In that arena, I had the opportunity to meet with a lot of different business people, and also our chamber was connected to the Small Business Administration. We had a county office of business development. That was free advice. There's programs like SCORE that are government run programs that are there to help people create and develop businesses that were all really, really helpful for me at different stages in talking through plans and learning about the finances and consulting about human resources. That was fantastic. So that was all valuable and free. I also spent a lot of time going to the library and getting books on those types of things, books on learning about marketing. Like I had done marketing before, but I really didn't have any formal training in it. Learning about books on small businesses and what do you need, how do you make an organizational chart, and those were free resources. And those were great also. It's also really time consuming, but I mean that. So the problem is there are some resources, like if you're getting on and doing a Google search or talking to, of course, everybody has opinions, and it could be somebody from another provider who may or may not have your best interest at heart. It could be family members who they think they know you and that they're being helpful and say, oh, you should talk to Uncle Hal. He's got, he's the best bookkeeper for you to hire. Well, but he knows nothing about what you do, So those types of free advice, I think you have to really monitor and take with a grain of salt, and to be kind of cautious of, especially like just a lot of web surfing, because I just feel like there's a lot of stuff out there that if you aren't really already sound in the topic, it can just kind of be like a black hole in, for me, that was my experience. Like I definitely recognized, like I said, the areas that I did not have the skill set in, and I needed to get professional support, because the amount of time, I mean, I could spend a ton of time on learning certain things, but I'm still never going to be an attorney, and I'm still never going to be an IT specialist, and I'm still never going to be a human resources specialist. So I needed to get support with that.
I am so glad that you brought the idea. I'm a huge bookworm myself. I have Kindle. I have all of that. I have a Library of Congress membership, reader's card. But I so agree with you that like web surfing, it's great for getting the references to where you're going to, like a index catalog. But when it comes to verified information, nothing beats a well-written book.
Yeah, well, and the two together, but again, I would just caution basing everything. Like I have seen, you can get ideas for how you want to create your paperwork or things like that you want to use. But if you are saying, oh, well, this clinic over here in a different state has paperwork, I want to use their paperwork. Well, your state might have different requirements. And so that type of thing, or it's really important to know your local and state, laws, so you're compliant with them.
I agree. I mean, having a JD education here, like I just remember one of my professors saying, okay, kids, what's the most important thing? Why do you not want to go to these like self-help internet like web searches? And everyone was just saying all these things about inaccuracy. And he's like, check out the jurisdiction. Is this the correct jurisdiction?
Mm-hmm. Right,
And
right.
that is exactly on point with what a lot of people are saying.
Yeah.
We're almost heading towards the end of our wonderful webinar. So a little bit of lighthearted. If you could go back in time and warn yourself not to do something when you were creating your part of New Horizons Wellness Services, what would they be, or what would it be?
I think the main thing for me would be to have patience. And to celebrate the progress that you're making. I think that obviously when you decide to do something, you're like, I want to do it, but recognizing that it's a multi-step process. I would say if I could go back, I would say to recognize that being a practice owner is challenging sometimes, and that you have to have support for yourself personally and professionally, and just, plan on that you're going to need that support and find it before you have it. And then finding a way to get some type of organizational system, because there's a lot of things to learn and things to keep track of. And so if you're not already using something to manage projects, to do long-term planning, because you're going to start something and then get interrupted and then need to go back to it. So you need some way to be able to organize your information going into it. Otherwise, you're going to go into, oh, I got pulled away from working on this part for a few weeks. Where was I? Oh, where did I had this, article? I had this website. Where did it go? So planning that is definitely advice I would tell myself.
And you've answered the other question, the other side of this question, which is what should you do earlier?
Yeah.
We're at the end, and I don't see any Q&As, but thank you, Melodie, for being our guest and sharing your wonderful experience and your hard-won experience of starting New Horizons Wellness Services.
Thank you. Thank
you.
Yeah,
thank you. For anyone else interested, a YouTube of this recording will be available on YouTube. Excuse me, I'm having tongue twisters today. A recording of this webinar will be available both in our YouTube channel, and one will be offered to Melodie as well through their New Horizons Wellness website. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Please, I hear it's getting warm there in Oregon. Please stay cool again.
Yeah, we're trying.
Well, I think the weather followed. Seattle native, so it's been raining all week, and I'm like, I left Seattle to get away from the rain. It's followed me here.
Well, yeah, it's a little different. Not expected weather, but we're surviving.
We are. Thank you again. And thank you this morning for everything.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Are we, should I disconnect?
Yep, we're at the end of it. Thank you. Arun will take care of the recording and we'll make sure that all the sounds look good.
All right,
Okay.
great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.